North Korean leader Kim Jong-un seems set to meet with President Vladimir Putin on Russian soil. A US national security official says they're expected to discuss potential arms deals. But what can we expect from the talks? The trip would be Kim's first visit abroad in over 4 years. He's expected to visit Russia's far eastern port city of Vladivostok by armoured train. It's likely to take almost a full day to travel over 600 miles across the border, taking account of the North's sometimes archaic rail network. Relations with Russia haven't always been as warm as they were during the height of the Soviet Union, but the country is now reaping clear benefits from Moscow's need for friends. Since Kim first met Putin in 2019, Russia has opposed new sanctions on North Korea, blocking a US-led push and publicly splitting the UN Security Council. North Korea expert at Seoul's Kookmin University, Andrei Lankov, thinks Kim wants to emphasize a sense of Russian backing.
Kim Jong-un will try to get some kind of economic assistance, politically motivated economic assistance from Russia. Maybe he will get some promises, but I don't think he will get much of real stuff because for Russia it's a rather marginal concern. So probably North Koreans should not expect to get much aid and assistance, but opportunity to make money by sending their workers overseas and maybe some limited military cooperation. But what is important is a show.
The most striking sign of recent deepening ties came in July, when Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu visited Pyongyang. He toured a weapons exhibit that included the North's banned ballistic missiles and saluted weapons as they rolled by during a parade. The war in Ukraine has likely strengthened recent ties between Russia and North Korea too. As Russia's isolation over the war has grown, analysts say it has seen increasing value in North Korea. Here's Patricia Lewis, the head of British think tank Chatham House's International Security Programme.
What's, I think, very interesting from the perspective of the Russia's war against Ukraine is that Russia clearly is needing to offer something to North Korea to get ammunition. It's not just straightforward, just purchase. And I would say as well that what we have seen too is that they're not getting what they need from China, which I think is very interesting.
North Korea has reciprocated Putin's most recent displays of support by backing Moscow after Russia invaded Ukraine.
This is not going to reflect well on North Korea, and they will pay a price for this.
The US accuses the North of providing arms to Russia, but it's unclear whether any deliveries have been made. Both countries deny those claims. The vast majority of North Korea's trade goes through China, but experts say Russia is a potentially important partner as well. Last year, Russia and North Korea restarted train travel for the first time since railway journeys were cut during the global health crisis. United Nations data also shows that Russia resumed oil exports to North Korea, the first such shipments reported since 2020. Moscow denies breaking UN sanctions, but Russian tankers have been accused of helping evade caps on exporting oil to North Korea. Russian officials have openly discussed working on political arrangements to employ thousands of North Korean labourers, despite UN resolutions that ban such practices. Russian officials and leaders in occupied regions of Ukraine have also hinted at having North Korean workers help rebuild war-torn areas.
Our current analysis is that discussions between North Korea and Russia with respect to North Korea providing military support to Russia for its war in Ukraine, that those discussions are actively advancing. Most recently, we saw the defense minister of Russia, Sergei Shoigu, make a trip to Pyongyang, in essence, to ask for weapons. And we also have information, as we have indicated publicly, that North Korea's leader, Kim Jong-un, has some expectation that those discussions will continue as we go forward, including leader-level discussions, perhaps even in-person leader-level discussions. Now, I can't get into all the details of what we know, but at the broad parameters, that is what we are seeing, that the leadership of North Korea sees this as potentially leading to leader-level engagement. And the reason why that there is such an intense effort on the part of Moscow to generate this kind of support from North Korea is that we have continued to squeeze Russia's defense industrial base, and they are now going about looking to whatever source they can find for things like artillery ammunition. That's what we see going on now, and we will continue to call it out, and we will continue to call on North Korea to abide by its public commitments not to supply weapons to Russia that will end up killing Ukrainians.
And any indication of listening to those very public warnings that you've mentioned?
Over time, we have not seen them actively supply large amounts of munitions or other military capacity to Russia for the war in Ukraine. I cannot predict to you what will happen at the end of this. I can only say that the discussions have been actively advancing, and the Russians have imbued them with an increased intensity, as reflected in the fact that their defense minister, their number one guy in their defense establishment, actually got on a plane and flew to Pyongyang to try to push this forward.
Could we get a little bit more analysis of how you think this is benefiting the North Koreans or what they want out of this?
So I can't speculate on North Korea's motives. What I can say is this. Providing weapons to Russia for use on the battlefield to attack grain silos and the heating infrastructure of major cities as we head into winter, to try to conquer territory that belongs to another sovereign nation, this is not going to reflect well on North Korea, and they will pay a price for this in the international community. We have also imposed sanctions, specific targeted sanctions, to try to disrupt any effort to use North Korea as a conduit or as a source for weapons going to Russia. We did so as recently as mid-August. And we have continued to convey privately as well as publicly to the North Koreans, and asked allies and partners to do the same, our view that they should abide by their publicly stated commitments that they're not going to provide these weapons. What has changed in their calculus is not something that I can speak to. That's in the mind of Kim Jong-un, and he obviously will be the ultimate decision maker. But we will continue to look for opportunities to dissuade the North Koreans from taking this step, to get others to do the same, and to report to the world what we are seeing in terms of the actively advancing discussions that are taking place between these two countries.
What does it say about the state of Russian supply lines that they're asking of all people, the North Koreans, for help?
I think it says a lot that Russia is having to turn to a country like North Korea to seek to bolster its defense capacity in a war that it expected would be over in a week, that in September of 2023, it is going to North Korea to get munitions to try to continue to grind out on the battlefield in Ukraine.
In terms of the reports about a potential meeting between the North Korean leader and President Putin, I don't have anything specific to provide in terms of a potential meeting, nor am I going to speculate on when such a meeting could occur. You have heard the White House talk about the fact that Kim Jong-un is seeking to continue diplomatic engagement with Russia as a follow-on to the Russian defense minister's recent visit, where Russia is seeking to purchase artillery ammunition from the DPRK. As I highlighted last week, such a sale would violate multiple United Nations Security Council resolutions, and it would prolong the unnecessary suffering of Ukrainian civilians who are impacted by Russia's war of aggression in Ukraine. So again, from a U.S. government standpoint, we would call on North Korea to refrain from selling ammunition and arms to Russia, which would unnecessarily prolong this conflict. From a United States standpoint, again, broadly speaking across the U.S. government, we remain engaged with a variety of partners, to include the French, ECOWAS, and others, to assess the situation as it continues to evolve. But the primary focus for us is on attempting to resolve this diplomatically, while recognizing that we do have an important counterterrorism mission in the region. I think it's a continuation of what we've seen from China in terms of obfuscation of international sovereignty, their attempts to try to create a new normal in terms of resetting boundaries, and then expecting other nations to comply with that, which is, again, why you see the United States working very closely with our allies and our partners in the region to assist them in terms of their ability to defend their own sovereignty, but importantly, to maintain adherence to the international rules-based order that has preserved regional security and stability for 70-plus years.